If you are trying to increase or decrease your body weight to change your performance in your sport, this is an episode you cannot miss. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 36 of the Foundation First Fitness Show with Bobak Owen. Today we are going to be discussing body weight and sports performance. And while this is a really interesting topic that I wish I had had my good friend on to be able to talk about this, because he does work in sports performance, he does work with pro athletes, and he does work in the pro sports world. It would have been a really good, interesting topic to get his insight on this. But since he wasn't able to do this, because that's basically why this episode didn't come out earlier. I was helping him down in Hartford with their training camp. And what ended up happening was we ended up getting so busy with everything that was kind of going on over that entire weekend of testing and training and and putting all the stuff together and getting ready for that season. We just ran into a lot of time constraints and weren't really able to find or carve out like a good hour to be able to really hash out some good stuff. So basically we decided to postpone it a little bit until we can get a good time where, you know, I'm going to be available, he's going to be available, and we're going to be able to put that thing together. They are coming to play here in Montreal in a couple of weeks, so it'd be good to potentially get that done then. If not, we're going to be doing it via Skype. And we're going to be going over some different topics, but today I think I wanted to just jump into body weight and performance itself and really kind of, you know, touch on a couple of really interesting points. Now, the first thing to really remember is when we discuss body weight training, what usually ends up coming to mind is weight training to either gain muscle, weight training to lose body fat. And it's at the complete opposite spectrum of sports performance. Now, while the training methodology and the stuff you do on the day-to-day, yes, some of the exercises are going to kind of overlap. You know, the bench press, the squats are going to overlap between those two, but almost the thought process and the religion of what's going to be going on in the weight room, whether it's going to be training for functionality or training for aesthetics, yes, those two are going to be different. So sets, reps, volume, training styles, pairings, and all that stuff. There's a lot that goes on there. And yes, there are very different spectrums. Generally, when we discuss body weight, our first thought is not going to be going to this side and dealing with sports performance. We're going to be thinking of aesthetics. And body weight training and the importance of weight training, the importance of body weight in sports performance is actually becoming very, very, very important. And it's something that's actually gaining a little bit more attention simply because there's a little bit of research that's starting to come out that discusses importance of it and the impact it can have on your performance and how to really know where you are in that entire spectrum. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But to really go over a couple of the things that are really, really interesting for sports performance, you know, and it's really something that's very obvious. I mean, every single professional team in the league, I'm almost certain, I'd be really surprised if they didn't, but I'm pretty confident the top level of sports, you know, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, most of all these teams, if not every single one of those teams, I'd be shocked if there isn't. I'm pretty confident there is, so I'm going to go ahead and say 100% of those teams have a nutritionist on staff. Whether they're contracted out or they're actually part of the staff, there pretty much is someone that's assigned specifically for nutrition. And a lot of that comes down to what goes on throughout the day, what goes on throughout those workouts, throughout the games, between the games and recovery and maintenance of a proper body weight and stuff like that. So it is very important, and it does play a huge role in sports performance. So it's not something that we could just toss to the side and think, oh, that's not for us. We're athletes. We don't need to really worry about that. You know, we gain weight, just build more muscle, and you'll be good to go. When you are dealing with body weight, there's two ways you can go. Increased weight, decreased weight. Very obvious. There's no real secret there. But at the same time, there are consequences that can come from having both of those two as goals and objectives. There could be things that are very good and there could be consequences that are very bad. Now, you want to make sure that you understand both those consequences to be able to make the appropriate judgment. This holds true not just for sports teams, but for individual sporting events. If you're a runner, if you're a triathlete, if you're a boxer, swimmer, I don't know, like whatever you're playing, even other sports, soccer player, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It doesn't have to be like football, hockey, baseball, stuff like that, where weights, proper body weight and stuff like that, and all this stuff is only dedicated towards them. It's very important for the other sports as well. And what really comes into play is the adjustments of that body weight. So when you're trying to look at your body weight, when you're dealing with a situation where you're either deciding whether you want to increase or decrease, you have to make sure you're paying attention to the consequences, as I mentioned. Increased weight. If we start by talking about increased weight and we think about what could actually happen. Now, increased weight could do a couple of things. Increased weight can improve your performance, and it can also decrease your performance. Let me explain. If you look at a hockey player, let's say that said player comes in at 200 pounds. They may think they can go in either direction. They can go up and increase their body weight by increasing muscle. They can go down by decreasing the amount of body weight they have, so potentially decreasing their muscle, getting a little bit leaner, getting a little bit smaller. What would happen if we took, let's say, 15 pounds up and 15 pounds down from that 200-pound baseline? They go up by, let's say they're increasing. So for this case, we're only going to be speaking about increasing. They increase their body weight. They can improve their performance if, let's say, they're in a position where they're a hockey player and they need to be a little bit more physical and they need to be able to withstand a lot more punishment and they have to be in the corners. If they were a football player and they need to be a little bit stronger, they weren't able to get the tackles in. They weren't able to break off tackles, whatever. Yes, they may need to increase that body weight to be able to handle that. On the other side of things, for decreased performance, they increase their muscle mass. Now all of a sudden they're a little bit slower. And you're probably thinking, well, they're 200 pounds and they just put on 15 pounds of muscle. They're putting on more muscle. How on earth are they slower? And I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. So keep that point in mind because I touch on it at the end and I'm going to explain why you need to be thinking about that and why it's a really important thing to be discussing and why I brought it up actually. So you can increase or decrease your performance. If you end up increasing your weight, you could potentially slow down. You could potentially get faster. There's a reason for why that could happen. So you really don't want to just assume that you're putting on more muscle, you must be getting faster. An increased body weight might not just be muscle either. I mean, yes, it can be. It's very possible that it is just pure muscle, but sometimes it's a little bit extra fat too. So you are carrying a bit more weight and fat on your body. Your percentage may not go up. Your percentage may stay the same. But if your body fat percentage stays the same and you go up in weight, well, then your body fat went up too. There's no way of avoiding it. It's just basic math and science, right? If you increase weight, there's also a higher chance to just kick the camera. Sorry, guys. If you increase your body weight, there's also an increase in likelihood of injury. There's also a potential decrease in risk of injury. It really comes down to how you look at it. Let's take our hockey player, a 200-pound hockey player. He gets heavier. Now he's not getting knocked over as much. He's a lot stronger. Perfect. So he decreases injuries by increasing his body weight. Excellent. That's what we wanted out of it. Perfect. That's what we got out of it. Let's take a completely different sport. We take a runner, increases their body weight. Muscle, a bit of muscle, a bit of fat, whatever, an equal percentage. They go back up. Body fat doesn't change. They end up increasing their body weight. Now their body is having to handle that extra load, and they go from not having that body weight to increasing that body weight suddenly, and now all of a sudden they're getting hurt. Or their, tendons and ligaments were barely hanging on because they're doing so much running and they're doing so much distance work that all of a sudden, instead of being able to handle that weight, now they can't handle it because they've just pushed it over the edge of being able to withstand that amount of pressure and that amount of stress on those joints and ligaments. So there's so many ways that this could really go. And that's why I'm saying, just with looking at increase in body weight, it could literally go in both extremes. And if we take lowering weight, literally the same thing can happen, right? You lower your body weight because you want to get faster. All of a sudden you've taken off muscle. Now you can't skate as fast. Or you take off 15 pounds of body weight and you think you're going to be getting faster. Yeah, you got faster, but now every time you get hit, it feels 10 times harder because you don't have that body weight to withstand the force, right? What do you call it? Now I forgot. Of all the times I forgot the word. Anyway, scientific word for when something hits another thing and there's a recoil of stress. Wow, of all the moments that I actually forget that, I forgot it now. It'll come to me and I'll throw it out there randomly. So if the goal is always in line and we always have our mindset on the goal of it, chances are we're going to be able to make a better judgment and a better decision of what momentum. That was the word, momentum. So whichever weight is heavier and has momentum, it's going to hit the other small, and it's going to be the smaller weight and the lighter weight, and it's eventually going to win that battle, which is why when you get hit, when you take a pickup truck and you hit a little Fiat, what do you think is going to happen if they're both going 100 kilometers an hour? Well, guaranteed that pickup truck is going to come out of that with a little less damage than the Fiat will. So that's basically what happens when you drop that weight. So again, going into the goals, if you're able to assign and basically define your goal properly and understand the impact of what could come from either that increased or decreased weight, then your likelihood of not having the negative consequences is a lot lower. The chance of you not having those negative consequences goes up. So the first thing I would tell you to do when you are trying to decide whether you want to increase or whether you should or shouldn't increase your weight, take a look at your sport. First thing is take a look at your sport. Now, assuming that it's either you or it's someone you know that's trying to do it and you want to pass on this information to them, feel free to do that. Or it's you and your kid, your children you're trying to decide whether you want to increase or decrease body weight for them. Understand the sport. And what I mean by understand the sport is, are they a runner trying to gain weight? Are they a runner trying to get lighter so they can move a lot better? Or are they a football player who's a linebacker who is 200 pounds and should be 245? Are you a hockey player that's trying to play a big man role? You're 6'4", and instead of being 216 pounds, you're 176 pounds. So it's really trying to understand the sport. Will you increasing or decreasing body weight have a negative or positive impact on the sport? And the way to really look at that and understand whether it will have a positive or negative impact on the sport is, obviously, yes, look at the sport and the position and what you need to execute out of that position. Are you trying to last longer? Are you trying to move faster? Are you trying to be stronger? The second thing is know your body type. And that's why I was saying that whether you can increase or decrease body weight might make you sore or faster. It's because if your body weight, if your body type and your body structure is not able to handle it, right? If someone with my body frame puts on 25 pounds thinking that they're going to get faster, they're flat out of their mind. There's no way they're going to get faster. I move extremely fast. I'm actually very explosive of an athlete. I run extremely fast. It's the only thing I've ever really been able to do very well. Ever since I was very young, I've always been a very explosive athlete. If I put on 5 to 10 pounds, I might be able to pick up some speed, but there's going to be a point where my body and my structure is just not going to be designed to carry that much weight, and my muscles and tendons and body mechanics are just not going to be able to handle that 20-pound increase, and I'm actually going to be carrying added weight that I might not need. The next thing you want to look at is your goal. And specifically, whether your goal is really out of reach or really close to you. If it's really close to you, the negative consequences of that might not be as high. If it's really far out of reach, there's going to be a big time fluctuation in performance, guaranteed. Potentially even injury risk as well, probably injury risk. I shouldn't even say potentially, I should say probably injury risk. So if you're going for a 5% shift, yeah, you might not really notice it that much negatively. It's probably going to bring a lot more value to you than anything, depending on what you're trying to do with it in your sport. Obviously, making sure that you're not making the negative increase in weight. So you're not trying to increase body fat to be a sprinter, So that's not really a good thing. But if you're going up in 10 to 15% shift in body weight, yes, now you're stepping into treacherous waters, treacherous territory where you're going to be likely to get hurt. So if you're looking for a 10+% increase, fluctuation in body weight, you really have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and that you are actually very far away from where you should be and not trying to squeeze out a little bit better performance, because chances are you're not going to be getting that, especially not with a 10 to 15% or even 20% increases. I've heard some people say, which just makes no sense. Your body likes to sit in a nice position in what we like to call an equilibrium point or the status quo. The further away you venture from that, the higher the likelihood of your body not functioning optimally. So you want to really play within your ranges of your body type, and that's actually become something that's been in research lately. People have been really discussing the bone structure size to know and predict whether an athlete can actually handle putting on 20 to 30 pounds, because some athletes get drafted thinking, oh, he's 170 pounds now. It's okay. If we give him some training and, with a couple of years, his body's going to hit 230 pounds and he's going to be that, perfect position and perfect player and perfect athlete that we're going to need. And oftentimes that's not the case. Someone that's going to be able to put on that kind of weight will eventually naturally find their way to it effortlessly. If you try to increase your weight with effort, chances are is that in most sports, especially if you need to be dynamic and explosive and shift around and move around, it's going to be slowing you down. It's going to have too much of a negative consequence, too much of a negative impact. So if you want to stay within your status quo as all times, that 5 below 10% shift, especially in the short term, to be able to make some transition but not make it too drastic. So the best way to accomplish this, regardless of what direction you're heading in, positive or negative, is progressively. So what I mean by progressively change is that our body needs to be able to adapt, right? We know that if you haven't worked out for 6-7 months, and then all of a sudden you just decide, okay, today I'm going to do 1 set of bench press. Tomorrow I'm going to do 5 sets of bench press. Chances are your body is not going to handle that very well. Your body's going to feel it the next day for damn certain, and your body's not going to be able to get the benefit out of it. So when you're trying to increase body weight for performance, you want to make sure that you're maintaining that same principle, progressively build. The more progressive and the slower you can ramp up that body weight, the better and the higher the likelihood of you not running into a negative consequence like injury, like decreased performance, because your body's going to adapt as it goes. It's going to start learning how to adapt. Now, again, as I mentioned, this does not supersede the body type discussion and whether you're going to be in the right body type and you're going to be able to handle it. This is this is a very specific component, whether you stay within that or not. Yes, you should be progressive, but when you're trying to increase performance, if you want to stay below that, let's say 10% shift, you want to make sure that you're doing that progressively. Don't be trying to jump 10 pounds in 2 weeks. It's just way too much. And I know this becomes a really important discussion, important subject for a lot of athletes, because some of you are dealing with something where you have a short off season and you dropped a lot of weight during the season, so you're trying to jack that back up. So you want to make sure that when you are doing that increase in body weight, it's not drastic, it's progressive. The last thing, or the next two things, is that when you do have an increase in body weight or decrease in body weight, something will also happen, which is a change in your biomechanics. What I mean by biomechanics is the way your body moves, right? You're carrying more weight. Your body has to learn how to control it. So a really quick fluctuation in that will cause a change in your biomechanics. Your body will not be able to handle itself because it's basically like saying, if I looked at you and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I want you to run as fast as you can. Then when you get back, I'm going to strap on 10 pounds of weight on you, and you're going to try running and moving and shifting. Your upper body's going to toss to the side. You may not be able to handle it properly. If you drop in weight, you may not. If you drop too quickly, your body may have lost significant muscle that it was using to stabilize itself. Now you might be like, oh, I might be lighter, but now moving a little bit quicker, and I'm not used to handling that speed. So progressively moving through those increase or decrease in body weight is going to be beneficial for you. For someone who's running, now I know there's potentially a lot of runners out there. Daniela, what's up? I know you're a longtime listener, loyal listener. So I'm going to speak to you a bit about this one, not because you've asked me about it, but just because I know it might be something that you might be interested in. Increase and decrease in body weight for a runner is really important because yes, at times you do want to increase your body weight because you might be trying to prepare for that race where you don't want to be underweight and then all of a sudden now you're not able to finish because you don't have the energy to do it. But at the same time, if you increase that body weight, you might be adding too much stress. If you're a runner again and you decrease your body weight, you may not be able to have sufficient energy to be able to complete the run or complete the triathlon. So when it comes to a runner, you want to make sure that you're falling in that nice sweet spot where your body is able to function optimally. And that is obviously different from person to person. And the best way to know where you are normally at is by eating really well, training consistently, and at some point in time, your body's going to hit that baseline. When you hit that baseline, you'll either know that if you want to decrease or increase performance, what you have to do is take baby steps to shift either down or up and see if there's a big change in it or see if there's actually an improvement in performance. The only real way of knowing is to test it, especially if you're not dealing with something like if I haven't seen you out or haven't put your numbers together, it's so impossible. It's actually completely impossible for me to just kind of guess where you should be. So you have to really sit down with a specialist and go over those details. But if you are a runner, this does apply to you, very, very closely apply to you because it's something that you really need to know. Body weight is huge for runners. The reason it's really important for runners and the reason why body weight is really important for runners is because your body weight is your fuel. You're moving basically your fuel source the entire time. That's the entire point of the race is you're trying to basically take your fuel source and move it from point A to point B and have enough fuel to last the whole way, but not too much fuel that you slow yourself down. So finding that sweet spot takes a long time and a lot of patience. And that's why if you change your fuel source or tank size, if you would, too quickly, your body can't adjust to it. And that can cause a negative decrease in performance, potentially an increase in injury. So you really got to be very careful and go through that change progressively. The last thing that can happen, which is usually kind of tied into, like cramping and other stuff like that, but it basically comes down to malnutrition. If you try as an athlete, especially if you're a professional athlete or if you're a distance runner, you're a very competitive athlete, malnutrition is very possible, especially during the off season, simply because sometimes people try to jump or drop their body weight very fast because they want to fit back into that mold that they were trying to be in. So you really have to, again, do it progressively. Because if you try to cut too many calories and you're still trying to up your training game, malnutrition may not be you sick in bed, but it'd be you may not being able to recover. You may not being able to do your workout the way you normally do. You struggling to improve your numbers in the gym. You not being able to complete your run the way you would normally run. So that's why you need to make sure that when you're changing your body weight, you have to be very careful that are you changing with the right tools? Are you putting the right amount of food in you? Are you putting the right kinds of food in you to increase or decrease your body weight? So having said that, I know it's a lot of information. And obviously I'm sure that some people may have some questions, but I'd really invite you guys to ask away. I think this is a big and interesting topic, and a lot of people will probably be able to kind of resonate with this to some extent. So if you do have any questions, as per usual, drop them in the comments, shoot me an email, message me on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and just let me know what you guys think or what kind of questions you have or what questions you do have about body weight specifics and stuff like that. And maybe I can kind of either answer that question for you or point you in the direction of someone who can. I hope you guys really enjoy this show. I love this one. This was actually one of my favorite topics to discuss. And if you guys like this, for those of you watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, hit that like button below. And for those of you listening on the podcast, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. YouTube too. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, I know some of you listen to it in the morning. Hope you guys are having a great day. And until the next time, guys, keep building that foundation.